Hey, Shalom, I want to start off as always by giving all praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Kadash. Double honors to the apostles of GMS and honors to you brothers doing the work of the Most High in truth and in sincerity. This one is inspired by something Apostle Rhymelove said in a video. Basically said, in terms of like the countenance, how, Jake, is for the most part just used as entertainment. And obviously, this is Psalms 137 and 3. It says, "For there they that carried us away captive required of us a song, and they that wasted us required of us mirth, saying, Sing us one of the songs of Zion." Okay, so that's what these heathen nations have used Jake for now. For instance, in the Eastern cultures, you think of like, Japan, Korea. I remember watching a video on Korea. It was a Jake woman in Korea, and she was like, "Yo, it's kind of annoying how these guys will take our culture, whatever, what have you, but won't like us." But that's it, because at the end of the day, what does the scripture say? All right, it says Matthew 5 and 13. Once I get to it. It says, "Ye are the salt of the earth, but if the salt has lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? It is thenceforth good for nothing but to be cast out and to be trodden underfoot." Okay, so Israel, we are the salt of this earth, right? The Lord has made us a special people. We can do special things. Think about the greatest athletes; they're Jakes. Right now, you do get certain great athletes that look like these other nations, but through the spirit, we're able to tell that actually these guys are Israelites, because there's something else about them that we can say, no, but that particular individual is actually an Israelite. Well, if they're the greatest, right, at something, they have to be an Israelite, right? Okay, so we are the salt of the earth. So these heathen nations, they like having our culture, they like having us entertain them, right? But they don't like Jake. But why don't they like Jake? Because they are our enemies, right? This is Psalms the 83rd chapter, and hey, it's okay, right? It's nothing to complain about that. They are enemy, so what? Okay, it says Psalms 83 and verse 2 says, "For lo, thine enemies make a tumult," right? So it's about to speak about enemies, right? The enemies of Israel, they make a tumult, right? It's from the Hebrew word hama. It says to murmur, growl, roar, cry aloud, right? To growl, roar, right? To be boisterous, right? So basically, they're basically making a ground. They're moaning, they're complaining, right? It says and they that hate thee have lifted up their head. They have taken crafty counsel against that people and consulted against the hidden ones, right? And part of that crafty counsel is only showing our people as entertainers, right? Jake can be, doing things using his mentals, right? But they don't want to push that. In fact, they push something else. It's push something opposite. I remember, growing up, people are, "Oh, why you speak like a white boy for?" Right? Jake saying that kind of stuff. But what kind of energy is that pushing? That's pushing that Jake can't amount to anything. Because what does that statement even mean? What, to be able to speak eloquently, to be able to use the English that ultimately to be able to use English properly is somehow a bad thing, but that's what Esau has pushed on our people through this media, through the entertainment, through the entertainers that he set up. Right, he has pushed ignorance on our people, but we are not an ignorant people. Right, we're a special people, a chosen people above all the earth. So above all the people in the earth. Okay. It says, "They have said, Come and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent; they are confederate against thee." So all these heathen nations, they're confederate against us. They plan against us. They got all of these different schemes and plots to destroy Jake. Okay, it says the tabernacles of Eden. This is so-called white man. This is the Ishmaelites. The so-called Arabs, but for instance, your Saudi Arabia's. It says of Moab, right? So-called Chinese, and the Hagarenes and Gabal and Ammon. This is an Amalek. Ammon being the so-called Japanese, and Amalek being the chief house of Esau, right? the 1948 is, right? It says 1945 is, right? It says the Philistines and the inhabitants of Tyre, right? So they list some of our enemies there. Okay, so they've taken crafty counsel and they basically pushed Jake can only be entertainers, right? So this is why they don't like us having around, but they can't deny that we are the most entertaining people in the on the earth, right? Yeah, we can do all of these things, but they want to make it such that that is all that we can do, and that's just simply not true. Okay, so we'll proverb get the curses, right? This is Deuteronomy 28 and 37. Okay, it says, and thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither Yahweh shall lead thee. Okay, so by a proverb and a byword, so they'll call us niggas, spics, whatever it is, they have for Jakes in their particular languages, right? Because for the most part, they'll always remember that Jake was a slave. That is all that they will amount Jake to, right? So they'll say these things about us, whatever, what have you. Okay, and they will just say, oh, you're only good for entertainment. That's what that would you call that that anchor? I forget her name. That news anchor in America. What did she say about LeBron James? Right, just shut up and dribble. Basically, look, entertain us, but don't talk, right? You ain't got the mental capacity to be making political statements. And then the ironic thing was, then you had a whether it was an NFL player or what's the other sport that he play in America, man? The one where you hit the ball with the bat. But that league, man, the other one, right? Whether it's one of them sports, basically the guy was making political statements and she changed her tune completely. Why? Because he looked like a so-called white man. So that's part of the curses. Jake are only able to only amount to one particular thing, which is to entertain, according to this man. But that ain't the truth, right? But just on that particular point, Ari, because regarding the fact that this particular news anchor spoke negatively of LeBron making political stadiums, but positive statements, but positively regarding another so-called white sports person making political statements. This is Sirach 13 and 23 says, when a rich man speaketh, every man holdeth his tongue. Now, rich man, there's several dynamics to it, right? You can have the rich man being, if you've got Fauci, for instance, and then another doctor that's giving another point of view. The rich man in that particular instance, the man that is held to a high esteem, right, in that particular instance will be Dr. Fauci. Okay, but then if the poor man speak, right, for in this example being a doctor who gives an alternative view in terms of like this pandemic, right? East will basically make him look like the fool, and if he does trip up, as the scriptures say, they'll be like, "Oh, you see," and I'll completely disregard everything else that he said, right? Then there's also the rich man being just representing Esau, the so-called one, and if Esau says something, then people are like, "Oh, yeah, okay, cool," but let a Jake say something of a similar vein, and all of a sudden people don't want to hear it. And Jakes that have worked in a corporate setting, in an office kind of setting, you've experienced that. Hey, in fact, I'll say Jake that works in any job, right? You will give, hey, why don't we do it this way, right? At the end of the day, we are the chosen people, right? We can see certain bits of inefficiencies and say, if we do it this way, this will actually help this particular business, right? But you won't be listened to. Then someone else will make the exact same point, right? But guess what? The difference is they look like the so-called white man, and all of a sudden their particular point of view is listened to, right? So I carry on, so when a rich man speaketh, every man holdeth his tongue, and look what he saith, they extol it to the clouds, right? But if the poor man speak, they say, what fellow is this? And if he stumble, they will help to overthrow him. Okay. So yeah, what was I getting on that? So yeah, that's why Jake, in this particular kingdom, they don't make Jake, a Jake's opinion isn't counted for anything, right? So I'll get wisdom 5. I'll read 4. I'll read 4 first, and then I'll jump back up. Okay, it says, we fools, wisdom 5 and 4. It says, we fools In fact, I'll start from 3. And they repenting and groaning for anguish of flip. I'll just start from the top. And then I'll end there instead, right? It says, Wisdom 5 says, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him. Right. So we think about our apostles, we think about their teachers, we think about our elders, right? And then we're following on in their footsteps, right? As standing in great boldness, right? In the face of such as have afflicted him and made no account of his labors, right? So in face of the so-called white man, right, in face of these different heathens, right, basically telling them of their future trouble, of their future judgment, right? And it says made no account of his labors because one of them proverbs in Bartwaters is Jake is called lazy, right? Hey, but when they're putting their body on the line in the NFL, getting concussions and breaking bones, this, that, and the other, just for your entertainment, you ain't calling them lazy then, right? Jay worked for free for several hundred years. They weren't lazy then, right? But all of a sudden now, Jake is trying to come up in different ways. All of a sudden, they'll be like, "Oh, Jake is lazy," right? You don't amount to anything. You don't do anything. You don't add anything, right? This is when they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they look for. Right? So when they see the salvation by way of them chariots, right? It's what the so-called white man calls UFOs or UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomenon, right? They gonna be amazed. Why? One for one, we've been starting off with the apostles, of course, telling them about the salvation of the children of Israel for a long time, and they didn't regard it, okay. And also, Esau's taught them that there's little green men up in there. So when they see Jake, who is apparently doesn't amount to anything but entertainment, Jake can't be intelligent. He can't be able to use his brain, despite the fact that to be a master musician, your brain has to be working on a different level. Yeah, you might not be able to speak the best, but the fact that you're able to move the way that you do, right, as in terms of whether you're a musician, you look like a top musician. You're doing certain things, right? You can't just be dumb and also a great musician. That's folly, right? Even these sports person, which Brother Carter in the camp speaks about this every now and then. But you can have a sports person, and then people like are, he might not be able to speak. For instance, people take the piss out of Wayne Rooney, right? But to be a great as he's a great in English football, right? He has to be doing certain things on a particular level when he's on that field. His game mentality, his game mind, right, the ability to make certain decisions, that is a form of intelligence. Guess what? They ain't gonna attribute it to that, right? When JB on the basketball court doing this and the other, these are forms of high levels of intelligence, right? Now, just because they may not be able to speak a certain way, read a certain way, talk a certain way, doesn't therefore make them stupid, right? They're just not. That's just not their field of expertise, right? It's like looking at a doctor sideways because he doesn't particularly know how to use a computer. You can't call a doctor stupid because he doesn't know how to use, a computer, right? As in just as an example, it says, and they repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit shall say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometimes in derision and the proverb of reproach, right? We read that in the curses. Children of Israel were a proverb of reproach, okay, right? Niggas, spics, whatever you want to call it, man. You see Jake in the boardrooms, oh, I wonder what he's gonna bring, right? And if you fall, oh man, if you're on them, in them corporate settings and you slip up with the tongue, my way, they going to hunt you. They are gonna hunt you, right? As we read in Surah the 13th chapter, right? This is verse 4. We fools accounted his life madness and his end to be without honor. Yeah, they just thought that we were just entertainers. They required of us only a song, not regarding that we are the children of Israel, right? We are the princes of the earth. Well, you read that in our Ecclesiastes, 10 and 7. It says, behold, I've seen servants upon horses and princes walking as servants upon the earth. We're those princes walking as servants upon the earth. But it's okay because the Lord is coming back to right that wrong, right? How is he numbered among the children of the Most High and his lot among the saints, right? So, hey, as always, Lord's will, that was edifying. And I'm going to say to the next time, Shalom.